everyone, and welcome to another edition of American Scousers Fantasy Premier League show. I am joined with my friend and slightly beat me last week, irritate me in all levels, Matoush, the Polish Prince from Chicago. How are we in Chicago? And, well, let's start how we do all shows, right? What's the weather like?
Actually, it's not terrible, but we are predicted tomorrow to get anywhere from, get this, 1 to 10 inches of snow. So we might be on this end or this end, so we only find out while we are living throughout the day. Kind of, it's the Midwest life. You just, whatever happens, happens, and you just live with it.
Well, that sounds absolutely outstanding to me. The one part, or maybe the -1 part of the snow.
Yeah.
I broke out the snowblower for the first time this week all year long. And for someone who's grown up his whole life in New England, basically the snowblower got broken out just about 3 times a week. And by the snowblower, I meant me. And yeah, I said on the earlier podcast, or to the guys earlier, yeah, my father actually bought a snowblower the week after I moved to go to college. And I think I'll never forgive him. Like, for the rest of my life, he never had a snowblower for the 18 years I lived at his home. And I just shoveled like feet and feet of snow. And I think because of it is why I pay people to do that kind of stuff at my house. And he's always like, I can't believe you pay someone to, snowblow your driveway and you have a snowblower. And I was like, I can't believe you made me shovel all those years, even though we could afford a snowblower. But I digress. We're supposed to talk about fantasy football. But before we get to fantasy football, let's talk about how we talk about the real football. So we've talked about this on the program before. We have a American Scouser dedicated Discord channel. It is a supporters channel. It covers everything from transfers to the women's side to the youth teams, league cups, food and beverage, music, TV shows. Like, it's a really good community of people. So if you are looking to get with other like-minded folks, go ahead and click the link now that you're going to see in the comment sections and go ahead and register. Get involved. Get into the conversation. Start an argument. Yell at Pickler. Don't worry. You'll fit right in with everybody else. As we start every week, we start with the American Scouser Cup standings. Pep with a nice week, 104 points. After a -4, jump back up in the standings, top 5,000 in the world. Really, really great play. But, we probably don't give enough love to the other guys that are up at the top of this league in the top 25, 30,000 in the world. Really, really quality week, especially by Don't Care One Iota, which I don't know if we've mentioned the name yet on the podcast, but it is right up there in the best names in our entire American Scouser Cup. So appreciate the names, appreciate the great play. Keep it up, guys and girls. Jump up the board, run to the gauntlet, get as high as you can. Let's see how high we can get the American Scouser Cup overall average to be. I think it would be really great to have that be a really high score. Pep seems like he's in a good shape. It's going to be interesting as we start to dissect some of these weeks. But as we always do, we move quickly into the Contributors League. I pulled out a win, decent week. Kelly didn't fare as well. She just got really bit, I think, with the benchings, between Darwin and Robertson not playing 2 matches. The extra 4 points she took a hit on. It just really didn't work out for Kelly this week. I liked her moves. I thought going for it was like a really all-in move, and I thought it was really good because she already had Darwin and Salah, which most people didn't. So she made moves to really go at it, and it just didn't really work in her favor. But I give her credit for trying. And, of course, you and Bickler go right down to the wire. You with that garbage time Martinelli goal. It helped me too. We'll get to Martinelli, that bastard. For all those that know, I went back and forth between Saka, Martinelli, and Salah for captain. I actually had the armband on Martinelli with less than 10 minutes to go before the deadline. And like usual, Galley went Galley and picked the third best option.
I can't believe you even considered that, to be honest. I didn't think that was a consideration.
Remember how excited I was that he came on and scored, and I was like, now he's going to start both matches next week and outscore Saka. After I told you the whole podcast, I thought Saka was the captain pick, and then I told you Martinelli would outscore him. I started to talk myself into the fact of captaining him. And I wanted to make the differential. Now, I still moved up in the table with the score that I had.
Yep.
If I had Captain Martinelli, I would have moved up 400,000 more spots. Would have been nice, but also would have been a really, really bad gamble if Salah had hauled, and then I'd be kicking myself the other way. So, which is exactly what would have happened had I left the armband on him. So as we look at the standings now, you build your gap back up to 9 points. It was a big move for you. It was a big week. This would have been a big one for Kelly to stay within 6, if not even catch you at 3, had you not been able to pull out that one against Paul late. So, she's still feeling good. She still feels like she's there. I think Scott is probably the one who's really probably the most frustrated because he's got a really, really good side, really high score, slightly outscoring you, outscoring Kelly. And I think had he really not had like 2 or 3 kind of rough weeks in the middle, he'd probably be the one who was right there with a shout to run you down as the season goes on. So instead, we'll probably just have to watch your progression, which probably means with the last 4 or 5 weeks, we'll stop sharing these slides. Let's go to the team of the week last week. Obviously, lots of Arsenal players. All 3 Arsenal defenders, Zinchenko, Gabriel, and White. Of course, Martinelli and Saka. Little surprise in Foden and McGinn. Ings, we all know he can score whenever it happens. And then, of course, Ramsdale in defense, so in another Arsenal asset. At all surprised that the only Liverpool representation is Virgil van Dijk?
I think considering what the 2 fixtures were, then yes. Seeing how they played, no, because you just didn't have the returns that you'd expect Liverpool players to have. And I think Darwin missing the Palace game really, really attributed to that, because I feel like if he was fit enough to play, that could have been a different game. You definitely could see Mo with another return in the Palace game. You could have seen Darwin with a couple returns possibly. So I think the big thing there was Darwin missing that Palace game. Obviously, the annoying thing about this team of the week is that there's no possible way to ever configure this, having 6 Arsenal players. I think, sometimes there should be a team of the week and then the best potential real team of the week where, you can only have 3 from a side. These would be the top 3 scoring from this side, and then you kind of have to have the team built up from there. But apart from that, McGinn is the only other one that's really shocking. I feel like we should have seen Mo there. We should have seen maybe Odegaard potentially there. I know some people were hoping maybe Gakpo would be there given the double. But of course, we couldn't predict that he wouldn't play all 180 of both of those games. And then just a random Junior Firpo there is kind of funny as well, because you just wouldn't expect to see that name alongside of the doubles that teams had, especially with Liverpool having 2 clean sheets. You would think that maybe Trent would have snuck his way in there instead of Firpo, but it is what it is.
Yeah, there's no surprises here for me other than the fact that Arsenal did really well playing 2 crappy teams, and they're a good side. So they score goals and they keep clean sheets, and guys like Gabriel and White and I guess in this case Zinchenko. Zinchenko's irritated me all year because I watch him and I see the player that is so dynamic and offers so much going forward. I also understand why he never really bedded in at City, and why he's even at Arsenal is still makes Arsenal supporters question whether or not he's actually good enough. He just doesn't look good enough, but he does everything to be good enough. I know it sounds stupid to say, but it's probably why it holds him back in fantasy. I think there's a lot of players like that. For half of the year last year, no one actually believed Jared Bowen was that good. And then eventually people were like, well, I'm just going to put him on my team. And then then they start watching, of course, because you're on a fantasy team, and you're like, wow, this guy's pretty goddamn good. It's yeah, he was good all along. He was good at Hull City, actually. That's why big clubs wanted him. And he had the talent. You just had to put him around players that could do it. So let's look at the transfers coming in this week. We do this every single week. It's always an interesting exercise. Tony, Watkins, Rashford, me, and Matoma. Do you think Rashford and Matoma has as much to do with so many people jumping off of them because of the blank week as it is people actually bringing them in thinking they're the right transfers for this match week?
I think that's exactly it. And I know while we're recording this, Rashford's price actually just rose as well. So he went up 0.1. So Rashford is now a little bit more expensive than he would have been, let's say, yesterday or the day before. So if you wanted to bring Rashford in, if you're like me and you got him out and you're thinking about getting him back in, you're going to lose some money there. So I'm probably going to hold off on bringing him back in for the time being. Far as Matoma, same situation again. They had the blank, and now with Brighton having 2 doubles in the next 3 weeks, or 2 doubles in the next 4 weeks, excuse me, because they've got 27, 29. We're only on this is 26, right? Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, so 26. Yep. So they have 27, 29. So that makes sense. Brentford also has a double coming up, and then Watkins he hasn't stopped scoring. I know we talked about him last week. And we kind of thought maybe this is where the streak will end, but he just keeps putting the ball in the back of the net. So it's the reaction off of that.
Yeah, and I think Ben Mee's, the underlying numbers, Brentford's keeping lots of clean sheets, have great defensive statistics. Mee gives you a random shot at goal on corners and set pieces as he's kind of their target man. And then, they have those doubles. They have the upcoming double fixture that we talked about that isn't that bad. As far as Watkins goes, I really like Watkins. I think what Unai Emery's doing is pretty much like classic Unai Emery, just over-managing, completely overachieving with his side. I think he's got them playing in a really good system, and I think the system always leads to strikers who can run behind. And we know that Ollie Watkins can run behind and finish. And that's what I think he's showing. And for a person like me who has, Leon Bailey, you're happy to see this because when Watkins is firing is when Emery's playing Bailey as a second striker, because you don't want Watkins playing in a 2-striker system. You don't want Watkins playing where balls are coming to feet. You want him running into channels. You want him playing with pace. So I've thought a lot about bringing him in because I'm still on Mitrovic. We'll get to, our moves in a little bit. I like these moves. The thing about Matoma is I just question whether or not, it's one thing to have the $5.2 million player that 5.4 or 5.5, whatever he is now, that can't stop scoring, right? It's like the Almiron piece. There's something else, though, to having a differential that everybody else has. It just doesn't really move you anywhere. And at 5.2, it's not like you're reconfiguring and jigging up your team to fit him in. So for me, I almost feel like people who don't have Matoma now might have missed the boat for now. And you might be better off. And we'll get to some of those options, whether it be Brentford midfielders and or Brighton. So when we look at the transfers out, Nketiah at the top, Mahrez, Gakpo, Silva, and Mitrovic. Other than Silva, who clearly was announced today will be out for a considerable amount of time with a knee injury, what jumps out at you on the outgoing transfers for this week?
Nothing else. I think Gakpo was a big play for the double. I assume a lot of people would be bringing him in for that. And then Mahrez is one of those Pep roulette types. You'll always see Manchester City players being either the most transferred or the most transferred out, depending on how Pep treated them the week before. So that one isn't surprising. And Nketiah, I think people are just really frustrated that he didn't get a chance to play all 180 and wasn't able to return the way that the rest of his teammates were able to return in a double. And then Mitrovic, again, one of those just not sure what to do with him at the moment, and there might be better avenues, especially with maybe players who might have gone from Kane down to Darwin. A lot of players did go from Kane to Darwin. They might be looking now to take Mitrovic up, maybe back to Kane, and then going down on a mid somewhere possibly. So I think that there's nothing surprising this week.
Yeah, I'd say, I agree with you completely on the Gakpo thing. I think the other part about the Gakpo thing is you see Jota get a start and look influential. You see Darwin playing the way he is and how poorly they looked against Palace without him. eventually Bobby's going to get a start or two.
Mhm.
So with that right there, I think you just know that, and then eventually Diaz comes back. So Gakpo actually falls back to where people thought he was when he was purchased, which is like Liverpool's fourth or fifth attacker. And I think if that happens, he's just not worth that value at that rate. I'm still sitting on Mahrez. We'll talk about him because he's one of the people in my thoughts for this week. It's a tough one for me because I have both Mahrez and Mitrovic. My issue with Mahrez is I still believe he's City's most consistent overall attacking asset, and I also think that when he's on the pitch, he's on set pieces and penalties, which gives you a reason to keep him, even if he is a 1-point sub, because he can turn a 1-point sub into a 9-point performance really quickly, the way we saw Martinelli do 2 weeks ago off the bench. Mitrovic, little different. I think with Mitrovic, it comes down more to, especially with Fulham advancing in the FA Cup, I question whether or not they're not going to start focusing on the FA Cup. I mean, they're in the semifinals. They're at a position or the quarterfinals. They're at a position to take a run at trying to win a cup competition.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a London-based club. They need these type of days at Wembley. Their supporters would love for that opportunity. And Mitrovic would love to play a big part of it. So does he get a little less run in the league, a little more rest? I'm not sure. So it'll be interesting there. So as far as Nketiah goes, that's a twofold. He had a bad double game week, which always hurts. He didn't perform when all his other players did. And Jesus is in full team training at this point. So he's a week or two away from starting. And as soon as he can start, this guy goes back to getting 10 minutes a match off the bench every single match. And I think with Trossard there, I think, and Emil Smith-Rowe coming back to fitness, I think it doesn't look good for the kid. Never made sense to me when he signed the contract that he signed in the offseason because I didn't think he was going to get a fair shake. And I think that at the end of the day, I will be rung true on those statements. So let's talk about your team.
Yeah. Took a hit. I took Rashford out from Mo and then went from Kane down to Darwin, which was a very popular move amongst a lot of FPL players. So in my mind, I think I did the right move. Thinking we were expecting Darwin to play a little more than he did, but so be it. Didn't happen. Happy that Salah got at least a little bit of a return in that second game to make the captain worth it. If Salah did not return, it would be a pretty rough game week. But overall, the Luka Dean move from 7 weeks ago has finally paid off, you guys. So if you don't like your move, just don't do anything about it, and eventually it might pay off. It's maybe the lesson, but no, the lesson is don't bring in Luka Dean. But having the double up on Arsenal defense was really nice. And it was a big key for me there. Kind of feel bad for everyone who did go to Tarkovsky for the double because that was another popular move and that did not work out for any owners of Tarkovsky. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, the guy who told me to do it twice during the pod and then after.
Sabotage.
And then didn't do it. Appreciate that shit. Bastard.
You're welcome. I can take 8-point hits. So, that's what it was. But I did move up 300,000 spots. So all in all, I'm in the top 2 million now and maybe making a run for the top million here towards the last 13 weeks. So we'll see how things go.
So what is your thoughts for that? What is your thought for this week? Have you thought about moves? Are you making a move? Are you going to save a transfer? What's your plan with this side going into this week?
So I'm not. Here's the difficult thing about this week, and this is something that we'll definitely be talking about. And I do have a little image to share over on my screen as well. I think I'll actually, if I do it now, let me just show that real quick so that you guys can see what we're talking about. So this is sort of a Venn diagram, if you will, of teams that have a double game week in 27, have a double game week in 29, and the teams that play in both of the big blanks. The big blank of 32 really isn't a big blank anymore. You've got a lot of good teams playing in that blank, so it really isn't that worrisome. The blank in 28 is what a lot of players are looking at right now. That's 3 weeks away. So I don't think, going back to my team then, thinking about where we're at, I don't want to save a transfer this week because I think my plan is I'm going to wild card in 27 to then free hit in 28 to bench boost in 29 because I want to take advantage of the double in 27 with Brighton and Brentford. And if I have then the double in 29, I'll have the one move after the free hit to bring in a United player or two that I had from my previous wild card to set up for that bench boost. So I think setting up with 3 to 4 Brighton Brentford assets in general who play both of those doubles is kind of the way to go for me right now. So I think looking at this week specifically, there's a couple different directions I can go. So I haven't really nailed down which way I want to go. The big thing is I'm going to stay away from United assets because while I think they have a good shot to score a couple against Liverpool, I don't have anywhere to make the move that I want to make. So I think I'm just going to look to maybe move a Mo to a KDB potentially, or kind of see what we can do there. But it's interesting because it's really any decision I make is going to influence the next 4 weeks because from 27 to 29, or 27 to 30, I guess, there's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, I like your moves. I don't know about the Mo to KDB. I mean, KDB he just didn't play at all last week, like not even a minute. And
so he's rested.
But Pep won't talk about why he's not playing. And then played him in the entire FA Cup for 90 minutes in a match that they didn't really need him, where they played poor again. I do feel like he's almost fallen out of favor, not like to like Cancelo levels, but I do believe like I'm not sure Kevin De Bruyne right now is a first team 11 player for Manchester City. As crazy as that is to say out loud. I think Pep is that manager. He's done it, right? He's sat Ruben Diaz all year long to play his fifth string center back, who at times hasn't even played that well in Akanji. But it's just what Pep does. He's got Nathan Ake playing ahead of Laporte, Diaz, and Stones at times. And in the summer, they were selling them to Chelsea for, and they were going to like laugh at them as they bought their own player back for the third time for £45 million. But in a classic Chelsea move. But I think with this diagram, what this shows is that there is a lot of strategy that needs to be taken into about what your transfers are. And I think you made a great point earlier, which is you have to pick where you're going to wildcard. Because your wildcard dictates whether you need 2 transfers, 1 transfer. Like, why not make a transfer this week, even if it's just to improve a bench player that might get subbed on? If it means if you know you're wildcarding next week, then you're just wasting a move by not making a transfer. You might as well make a transfer on a keeper. Who gives a shit? Like, just make a play. Personally, I follow your suit. I'm thinking about wildcarding next week as well. I do like the makeup on my side. So let's roll back to our sides, or let's bring back your side.
Yeah.
So if you make that move, what are you thinking about doing here?
Making the one move. I think because depending on how much, so I've got 1.3 in the bank, so kind of gives me a little bit of flexibility. I could move maybe off João Felix just to have another starting forward potentially, because I don't necessarily hate my midfield or my defense where I'm at right now, to be honest. I know Villa's at home to Palace, so I feel pretty good about leaving Luka Dean in there. And then City is home to Newcastle. That's the only thing I'm really worried about is deciding what to do with Trippier, Almiron, Mahrez. Is kind of, do I expect that game to be completely wide open? Do I want to do I want to take the chance to bring in a City defender, or no, because I already have the 3 City players in general. I'm not sure where to go right now, is to be completely honest. And that's why I think wildcarding next week, I know I need to burn a move, so I might move, like you said, off of Ederson to maybe a more successful clean sheet potential. I know Newcastle hasn't scored a ton, but they still have the pieces moving forward to be able to score against City. So I might look to move off Ederson, maybe bring in Ramsdale. But no, I already have 3 Arsenal. I don't know. See, I'm kind of stuck right now.
Yeah, your roster is a little tight. I think the player that you think about moving on from at this point, in my opinion, I think you could upgrade Almiron if you have 1 point something in the bank, and then you don't have to play Andreas. Like, because as good as Trippier is, with how little Newcastle is scoring and how much his attacking returns have dried up, I don't think you can start him against Manchester City.
Sure.
I just feel like it's a fait accompli, type of move. And I could be totally wrong. He'll probably get 2 goals and an assist and a clean sheet. But I think you have the moves here if you want to make them. I think you just have to seriously think about whether or not you need to. I think there is a transfer in there no matter what, especially with 1.3 in the bank. So, not as great a week for myself. 94 points after my 4-point hit. Obviously, Mitrovic not playing didn't really hurt me. Bailly gets subbed in. Mahrez not starting was a little bit of a kick in the pants. Bueno getting, pulled against Liverpool was hard because the worst part is that Bueno gets subbed in like the 62nd minute of every single match. So he actually would have gotten a clean sheet.
Yeah.
But he pulled the hamstring, and now I have to really think about what I do. And obviously it'll be an easy move once I wildcard in a week or two. I can bring Estupiñán back in this week, so I'm not really worried there. Tarkowski was a move that I understood was a short-term fix, and it was based on the double, and it was a 4.2, and it was to make money to allow me to get myself to Darwin and to Mo. I didn't need to make the moves. I obviously could have captained other players like Saka or Martinelli. I could have captained even Holland and done fine with it. So I'm a little frustrated with the negative hits I took last week, though it did pan out with, the green arrow overall. But not exactly what I was hoping for. As far as this week goes, I have to be honest, I'm a little stuck because I could make the move off of either Mahrez. I could go off Mahrez and I could get up to Salah. I could get up to Rashford if I really wanted to just bring him back. I, like you, I don't love him against Liverpool. I also don't love dropping Salah. He loves a goal at home against Manchester United. I think it's 4 of the last 5. He's gotten 2 returns or more at home. So he loves a goal against United at Anfield, and I almost feel like I have to utilize my transfer for Mitrovic at this point. I don't think I have enough in the bank to go Mitrovic to Ollie Watkins. I'll have to check. I think that would be the natural move if I did. But the fact that I don't makes it mean I have to make a double move, and that makes me think, do I take a -4 and maybe drop Salah down to a Rashford or to another midfielder and go back to Kane? And it's that whole Tottenham's not playing really well, but Harry Kane is still Harry Kane, which basically lets you know he has the second or third best chance to haul of any player in the game. So, I don't hate the defense. I just don't love my side, but I'm a week 2 or 3 away from wildcarding, so I know I just can't. It just pains me to think about taking a hit a week before a wildcard.
Yeah, I do like your Estupiñán shout. That's something that I might consider for myself as well if I want to upgrade, let's say, Brandon Williams to an Estupiñán and maybe go 5 at the back because I feel pretty good about the defensive fixtures this week. So I think, and in your case, Tarkowski, Everton's playing Forest, right? They're away at Forest, but that's always a possibility.
I'm fine with that
for something there. Trippier, you bring on. I think in your case, like you're saying, I don't know if taking a hit is going to be in your best interest. I like Mo against United for all the reasons that you said. So if you have enough for Mitro to Watkins, that might be the play there. I feel like Mitro to. If you do, because Bueno's out, so if you do Gabriel, Tarko, Trippier, Estupiñán 4, you don't necessarily need to play Mitrovic. You could do a 4-4-2, right? But I don't know if you'd rather just use a transfer to at least get a playable forward for Mitrovic, I think. So yeah, if whether it's Ollie or Danny Ings.
And of course, I'm just 0.1 away from getting Watkins in.
There you go.
So that can't happen. So that's the problem, and maybe you're right. Then maybe I just roll it. I play Bailly, I play Estupiñán, I bring Bueno and Mitrovic to the bench for now. I roll the dice. I hope Mahrez starts, and if he doesn't for some reason, then Trippier comes in anyways. He's my first bench player, or bring him back if I really need him. It's a little frustrating.
Why not go Mahrez to Rashford then if you're really considering Rashford rather than going down from Salah?
Oh, no, I definitely could go Mahrez to Rashford, and there's other options in that midfield range as well. I said it on the last podcast, I have this weird sinking feeling that Liverpool finds a way to nick United 1-0 just because this is when they show up and play a good match and just get up for a match and hold down a team that is in top form and all these things, right? The other side of it is at some point this Rashford purple patch has to somewhat slow down.
Does it though?
He's scoring goals right now at the level that Ronaldo and Messi haven't in 8 years. I'd say it does. He's not this good. He's not. I don't care what anyone says. I've watched this kid since he was 18 years old. He's a great, great, great player. He's not this good because his underlying numbers are actually not off the charts. So he's actually scoring almost at every opportunity, which is a two-parter, right? It's a guy who's in strikingly hot form, but it's also a guy where everything is working to his advantage.
Sure.
And eventually those things stop working to your advantage. Now, he has something going to his advantage this week. He'll be going up against Trent. So that is an advantage for any left-sided attacking player with talent, and especially one with pace. So, I also mentioned earlier that I could see Milner starting for the pure fact that Rashford is in the form of his life. So we'll see what happens there. I like the idea of shouting out Rashford. The other one I really like here, and I don't know how I would do it, I may downgrade and put a bunch of money in the bank so that I have more flexibility. I like the differential of going Mahrez to McAllister because I like the idea of jumping onto somebody else on Brighton other than Matoma that can actually haul and score points. And I think McAllister just gets overlooked. I think he's been consistently overlooked as long as he's been at Brighton. People talk about Sully March. They talk about Matoma now. They used to talk about, Basuma, and they talk about everyone, right? No one ever, and Gross, no one ever talks about McAllister. And again, another guy scores, and I'm pretty sure he's still on penalties. So, there's free kicks. And so there's opportunities there. I thought about that one. But again, if I'm going to a wild card and I'm going to rip the cord, are there better options for a 1 week punt?
Right.
I'm going to have to do my homework and actually look at the matchups. But then again, are you cutting your nose off to spite your face to get rid of Riyad Mahrez against Bournemouth?
Yeah, it's hard to predict what's going to happen. Who Pep even brings out for that match. And like Trevor is saying here, we both absolutely agree that Estupiñán is the best value that Brighton have. But I think this is definitely one thing where we're considering to bring him in on the wild card for both of those doubles. If you don't have your wild card or are planning to maybe keep it for later, then yes, this could be a great week to bring in Estupiñán because then you have him set up for the following week for the double. And then they also play during that blank. So that's going to be big.
Yeah, I'm not loving the Trippier move right now. I've thought a little bit about even maybe making that my one move and actually moving up a defender for this week. But you just lose so much when you want to bring him back at some point because he's gained so much value. It's like the Martinelli thing. Guy's been on my side since literally late July. Probably going to be in my side until June, And for those of you who just started playing this game, the game is over for a good couple weeks by June. But I just feel like he'll still probably be there because that value is there and that overall price point. So let's wrap it up on this. Like we always do, right? Let's think here about the 2 or 3 things. Like, what could you share with the listeners this week that you feel could help them, not just in preparing for 26, but looking at 27, 28, 29, other than your crazy flow chart that, only young people like you understand.
The big thing is make sure you know which chips you have left and come up with a plan, come up with a 4 or 5 week plan and stick to it. There's going to be a moment that happens during the weekend, this weekend, where something might happen. You go, okay, maybe I don't want a wild card in the 7 players I was going to wild card. Just stick with your plan, because if there's a reason why you're going to wild card in this specific week, that reason is going to be there, whether whatever happens this week or not. Or let's say, 4 of the guys you wanted to bring in the wild card get injured. I don't know. That's something crazy that would happen, sure. But stick to that plan, and then always make sure that whatever you do wild card in, don't waste that, right? A big thing for second half wild cards in this year, because we got the extra wild card. Use that to your advantage. Use it for a bench boost, right? So if you're going to wild card, don't wild card from 27 to bench boost in 28, because there are not going to be a lot of teams playing in 28. You're going to lose your bench boost. If you're going to do that, do a situation where you will save that bench boost for the following week when there's a huge 29. I mean, the double game week in 29 just has United, Liverpool, Villa, Newcastle, Brentford, Leicester, Chelsea. It's a really big double game week. So look at your chips, make a plan, stick to it.
Yeah, I will say the same thing. I think you have to use your wild card. I think it's all about the wild card. At this point in the second half, you can have your triple captain, maybe you have your bench boost. All these things work, right? But your wild card should set up a 4 to 5 week run where you understand the 1 or 2 transfers in that period you need to make. If you can do it where you couple it with a free hit to cover a blank game week, and you pick up the monster double game week in 29, and there's some that believe there might be just as big a double game week later, and there's some that think it's Brighton, if they advance one more round in the FA Cup, they're projecting we'll have a triple game week at some point between now and the end of the year. You can't bank on those type of projections. Right now that in 29, 5 of the top 8 sides from a Premier League fantasy asset standpoint will be playing 2 matches. You should literally be able to stack your roster with every single player being a guaranteed double start. Mm-hmm. Like, you really can. And if you do it well and coupled with your free hit, that's where couple right captain choices, a transfer or 2 in between, that is the type of thing that makes someone give a 300 to 500,000 spot move late in the season. That can really change the way that you move. So it'll be really, really interesting to see where we go. It'll be really, really interesting. BJ's been talking about this, I swear to God, since they announced that there would be this. BJ, they have already said it will not affect any Premier League matches. It's not affecting the Premier League matches. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they've said it already, that they don't plan to move any of the Premier League matches. But good old Chuckles will figure out his way. And honestly, he'll probably forget it's the day and won't even show up. He'll just be confused. And with all of our luck, no, I won't even say it. It's a terrible thing to say. Oh, wait. I'll say it. Less Royals. So we're wrapping up on that. The week is here. The week has come, right? One last question for you. How much of these FA Cup matches have you been watching from a fantasy standpoint? Have you been paying attention to who's playing? Have you been paying attention to which teams are advancing?
Honestly, no to the former, yes to the latter. Paying attention to who's advancing only because it affects the actual schedule of games.
Yep.
Not paying attention to how players are playing, because cup tournaments, cup competitions, players will play differently than they play in the league. And I think sometimes there's too much weight put on that. Some players show up in the cups, some players disappear in the cups, some players just it's something that I don't pay that much attention to. The only time it would really make sense is, let's say you had a player that's coming off of a 4-month injury. They get a good run in the cup game. All right, I might consider this guy now going into the league because he's coming back from injury. He's shown that he's fit. He's up to speed. Besides that, I only pay attention to the fixtures because the players, for me, it's not going to make much of a difference.
Yeah, I meant it more along the lines of minutes and like from starts and who might be playing on the weekend if they're playing midweek. But I do agree with you. I think that it's more about what teams will have additional fixtures, what fixtures might need to be made up, which might lead to doubles and blanks at the ladder. So it'll be interesting to see there how that goes.
But I also feel like we're getting to the part in the season where minutes, if your best players are going to play or are going to be available, they're going to play. We are kind of getting to that point in the season where if you want to make a significant run or if you want to keep a significant position on the table, you are going to have players play. We're not going to see the same sort of rotation as we did several months ago, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think you're too far off there. And honestly, just to quell BJ a little bit in his worries, there are only 3 teams playing home matches in London on the weekend of May 6th. So it's not like there's every match that is normally played in the Greater London area. And I know that, he's worried that like the whole entire country is going to shut down for this coronation. I think it was more of a security factor. There's 2 weeks left in the Premier League season. Maybe they move 2 or 3 matches to the Monday or Tuesday, but I only think that or up to Thursday or Friday, but I don't think it actually affects the overall play. They're not going to extend the season for this, or they would have already made those comments and announcements. So, who knows what will happen in the Fulham, Tottenham, and West Ham matches that are all scheduled to be home that weekend. That will be very interesting. So for myself, Gally in Massachusetts and Matoush in Chicago, thank you for joining. As always, please go to our YouTube page, give it a subscribe, like, share, comment, give us your feedback. We would appreciate it. If you want to get involved, send us a message. Let us know how you'd like to help. If you're interested in being a contributor, whether it be a writer or you have some skills in WordPress or website design, we would love to have your help at the American Scouser, the fastest growing Liverpool supporters group in the United States. And if we aren't, well, fuck whoever that is, because that's the title we've given ourselves.
Prove us wrong.
Abso-goddamn-lutely. So, we will be back next Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, or as Maka likes to say, sometime in the past. Everyone, I hope your captain's double. I hope your player's haul. And if you pick up one of my transfers, well, I'll apologize now. Thanks, and have a great week.